Victory, shelter. I promised you at the beginning of this video that we would be covering a number of topics. I'm going to launch right into the one of my own experience in growing up in ISKCON, the organization that was supposed to represent the Hare Krishna movement to distribute love of Godhead throughout the land. So I have a very, very unusual experience, or maybe more common than most people recognize in their own traditions, is that it's a mixed bag. You have in your place of worship a beautiful connection to God. Your heart opens. You have genuine spiritual experiences. But if you've been abused in the name of God, then you associate all of those horrible experiences, those deep, deep betrayals, with the spiritual environment or practice that you have. Many people are not able to uncross their wires, and they tend to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Many of my peers have that same condition where the abuse that they experienced was so horrific they simply cannot tolerate being around the Hare Krishna movement anymore, ISKCON. Well, also because many of the perpetrators have not been held accountable. It's been just, blowing on their wrists a little bit, slapping them on the wrist, blowing on the boil, mix up in the analogy. But there hasn't been a genuine, yes, we're so sorry, let's fix it. It's been more like the Catholic Church of let's just hide them all and make the least amount of apology we can and to keep going the way we've been going. In fact, there was one former director of the Child Protection Office who said that he was trying to clean up the child abuse within ISKCON, and after years of doing so, realized that they didn't actually want him to clean up the child abuse. They really just wanted a department head so that people who were complaining about child abuse could be directed to them and feel pacified. They didn't really want him to investigate and kick out the perpetrators. So feeling very disheartened and with his hands tied, he resigned. He gave a huge stack of active cases to the following head, and that person promptly lost them. And of course, two former heads of the Child Protective Office turned out to be themselves perpetrators and pedophiles. So typically, when you are a pedophile, when you are a member of the satanic cabal, you want to be in a position where you are above being questioned. And that is very often in a position where you hold a lot of sway, or people come to you with their problems. So you're the first to know about it, so you can curtail it. So anyways, where was I going with all of that? I was a really raw Hare Krishna girl. I grew up singing songs about Krishna. I had a beautiful, magical childhood in a way. I was born in Detroit, Michigan in 1976. The temple there is in the old Fisher Mansion, and I have very, very fond memories of running up and down the halls with my friends and playing amazing games with the lighted fountains. The festivals were off the charts. We had stages and lights and dances, and the food, the prasadam offered to Krishna was so amazing. There was just a restaurant with inlaid gold on the walls, and very, very beautiful. I have very, very fond memories of my mother, waking up in the morning for Mangal Arti, the first worship service that's before dawn, dragging me 6 blocks, sleeping in my fuzzy footed jammies to the temple. And, I would sleep on a little mat there it was a cold marble floor, but my mat was warm. And then I would wake up to the songs and the smell of incense and the ghee lamps and the arti. And it really infused my consciousness with love for God. I remember looking at the forms of the Lord on the altar. Deity worship is very different than idol worship. People get that mixed up because you're not supposed to worship idols, but the deity form of the Lord is not an idol because it is made exactly according to the bona fide descriptions of the Lord. You know, when we want to reestablish our relationship with God, we need a way to do it. And so he very kindly appears in what is called the Archa Vigraha, or the form that may be made out of wood, metal, stone, etc., for our benefit. God is everywhere. He's right in front of us, but we have material eyes. So in order for us to see him, in order for us to begin to interact with him, he comes in a form, in a way that we can make offerings to him, that we can have a relationship reestablished. So that science of deity worship is there for those who want to study it more. But anyways, I would be looking at Lord Jagannath, which is a very fond form, especially for children. He has large, beautiful eyes and bright colors. And I remember making garlands and necklaces and during the Bhagavatam lectures and offering them to him and having a very loving relationship with him. There were peacocks everywhere walking around, and then we moved to a farm community and we got to paint the cows with our hands for the festivals, and there were buckets overflowing with fresh yogurt and fresh made cheese, and just such a wealth of culture. An incredible wealth of culture. I can't say enough good things about it. And so it's not like it was an all bad thing. It was, I had the best education. I had the highest transcendental truth available to me growing up. We sang songs about the nature of the soul, of who is God, and, you know, basic philosophy. My mother was a songwriter, a beautiful person. And we grew up in ISKCON in its fledgling days. Yeah, there were challenges, but more often than not, it was very positive. I'm zooming through a whole lifetime of experiences and just trying to give the audience a general idea of what it was like growing up in the Hare Krishna movement. So I had a lot of positive experiences. Of course, you know, I had, you know, peripheral awarenesses of other things that were less than positive, but that's kind of life, right? But then in the 80s, early 80s and 90s, things were getting really rough, and we decided to move away from the temples, went back to my grandparents' house, and, you know, went to public school, which was a huge culture shock for me because I'd never known anything like that. But fortunately, my vocabulary was very developed because of reading Srila Prabhupada's books, and I excelled at the curriculum and did sports and la la la. Anyways, so I went to an exchange student program when I was a teenager and went overseas, and really felt a calling in my heart to rejoin my spiritual path. I'd gone to Sweden, actually, North Sweden, and, you know, freezing cold for most of the year, dark, in the winter, you know, lends to thoughtfulness. And I rediscovered my relationship with Krishna. I moved into the temple in Stockholm and became more or less like a born-again Hare Krishna. I was all rah-rah. And it's interesting because as a child you grow up, and I knew all the songs and the prayers and the procedures, but I didn't have the understanding of an adult mind to understand the philosophy the way that I did. So coming back, you know, I'd left when we were, I think, in the 5th grade, so I would have been, 12-ish or something. And then went to secular school for the rest of the time, and then got involved with whatever teenagers do. And then when I was 18, I got serious about my spiritual life and was just sucking all of Srila Prabhupada's words in like anything, and I couldn't get enough of it. And it became, I moved into the temple and re-began my spiritual life. So that went on for 4 years. I met my husband, we got married, we came back to the States. I had kids, 3 kids. And about, where was I? It was by 2000. So about 10 years later, we had moved to Florida, and I was looking around at the community here and really asking questions, hard questions, because everybody in life wants to make, you know, would like to feel that they're making a difference in the world. And certainly, you know, good people want to try to fix problems. And I knew that all the problems in life were spiritual in origin, and that the only solution was a spiritual awakening for the individual and, of course, for the communities, especially the communities that Srila Prabhupada wanted us to establish and develop so that people could unplug from secular society that is really just designed as a slave rat race. So I was looking around at the community that I lived in, and I thought, wow, this is really not what Srila Prabhupada gave us. There's so many issues going on here, and look at me, I'm not really far out of those issues myself. I'm not a strong swimmer here. And so I went in front of the altar, in front of Krishna, and I just said a very, very serious purify me prayer. And he took me seriously, very, very seriously. And what happened after that was a series of events. If any of you have made a prayer like that to God, beware. you will get what you ask for and then some, because Pandora's box opened wide. And here I'm going to take a moment, and the subtitle will be Repressed Memories. I didn't know anything about this topic until it happened to me. So my son had fallen out backwards of a window. It wasn't very high, but it was a fall. And we had taken him to get some help from a cranial sacral therapist and some other chiropractor people. Anyhow, long story short, I took a course with them on how to do some care for him at home, just some basics of body work and like that. And I was never really into what I called the woo-woo arts. It was, just normal, standard kind of medical approach to everything. But I knew that I had 3 boys and I needed to get some skills because they were always getting hurt. So I took this course, and it was a 3-day course. And then on the 3rd day, I had a life-transforming experience. The instructor was demonstrating the different techniques, and in the process, she released my lower spine, my tailbone. And suddenly, I was not in Kansas anymore. I had a raging, emotional, live in color experience of how I died in my previous life. The room, the walls all disappeared, and I was completely immersed in the events of the previous lifetime. It was so intense that it completely disrupted the class. The other participants couldn't continue. And the following day, anytime anyone, other the instructor or the other participants, tried to demonstrate one of the procedures, like the holds, how do you adjust this and that bone. It was like an on and off switch in my body. The experience was like pause, play, pause, play, pause, play. And I would continue to open and relive this experience. It was as if I had walked down a familiar hallway my whole life and never noticed that there were doorways lining the entire hallway. That's how it felt to me, discovering what lay below the surface. So that was in 2010, in the spring of 2010. The experiences didn't stop when I left the training. When I would go home, I would be doing dishes, doing laundry, whatever, just going on with my life. And suddenly I would just be getting flashbacks, disorienting flashbacks that matched the physical issues that I was dealing with. I had, female reproductive issues that I had never been able to get to the other side of, regardless of the different approaches or practitioners that I had approached. And I realized that was because there was so much repressed trauma in those different parts of my body that I had no conscious awareness of. But anybody who's on the healing path knows that the body can't lie. It just is not capable of lying. So it pushes out the pain, the untruth, the trauma in ways that manifest as illness. And if you want to get to the other side of your illness, you absolutely have to address the emotional, energetic causes of the diseases. And the physical manifestation of the disease is really just the way I say it is get it in the whisper or you're going to get it in the hammer because you have to look at something. It's like the idiot lights on your dashboard in the car. You're supposed to maintain your vehicle's, gas and oil and water and radiator fluid and all of those things. And the lights are to remind you to put the stuff in. But if you don't, and those lights are flashing or you ignore them, then your engine breaks and your car doesn't continue. So the symptoms of our physical body is when your engine's almost going to break. That you get the information in your emotional state, in your energetic state, long before it manifests in the physical. And typically, we're just trained to ignore it or take a painkiller so it goes away. Okay, so I can go into all the details. That's not the purpose of this video. I just want to let people know that the accusation by my critics that I have false memory or that my memories were implanted by a therapist or my mentor are completely unfounded. My recall happened spontaneously, non-verbally, and it happened because of my Purify Me prayer to God. And because I took it seriously, I said, God, my Purify Me prayer went something like this. My dear Lord, please allow me to see myself as I truly am, so that one day I can see you as you truly are. Because I want to make a difference. What you gave us, what Srila Prabhupada gave us, has the potential and the potency to fix every single problem in this world. And this organization was formed simply to spread this message of love of Godhead. But when I look around me, I just see hypocrisy. I see carnage. I see divorces and affairs and broken families and traumatized people and hypocrites and liars and cheaters. And look at me, what can I do? My life is not so great either. So you please make me useful. Before I get too old and useless, you please purify me of everything and make me useful in your service. That was my prayer. And I was called back into the temple room 3 times. Really? Is that what you want? Really, really, really? And by the 3rd time, I was like, uh-oh, he's taking me seriously here. But I kept saying yes, because I'm like, what else are you going to do with your time, right? You're going to go have fun in the material world and die and do it again and again and again and again. No, I'm tired, really tired, bone tired, weary of the game here. So the only thing left was spiritual emancipation. And I wanted to make a difference in this crazy world. We don't have to suffer this much. We have a beautiful, beautiful heritage. We're sons and daughters of God. We don't have to live like this. So anyways, the flashbacks started in 2010. They kept getting worse. My physical symptoms were getting worse. So a friend recommended that I go to my current mentor, who is trained in naturopath and in iridology, and through her own healing path, she discovered energy work. So my first few sessions the way the sessions work is they're mostly silent. They're just cycling the energy field. I mean, none of this was all like total woo-woo to me in the beginning. I had no idea how any of it worked. I had met her because my husband's back was out so bad that he couldn't even sit on a chair for like a month and a half. It was so bad. And one day she'd made a house call and my husband was laid out on the couch, and she sat on a chair next to the couch and she put one hand here, another hand on top of it, and just sort of went like this with her eyes closed. And I saw my husband's back start to go like this and went back into place. And I was like, oh, that just happened. How did you do that? It was like magic. But now I can do that because it's an art form. It's not like a spiritual gift. It's a subtle art form of how to facilitate subtle healing in the subtle body so that the physical follows. So if anybody's interested, that can also be, it's not spiritual life, it's a material science, but it definitely helps because I see that the healing path is really synonymous with the spiritual path. There are so many people who practice spiritual life, but unless you're completely brutally honest with yourself about your hang-ups and your issues, it's going to take you a long time to get to love of Godhead, because we're holding on to so many untruths, and we're fake transcendentalists. We're going to say, I'm above all of that. But then we're, harsh, we're cold, we're unfeeling, we are, we're not soft-hearted. Vaishnav is like we're supposed to be. So anyways, I was very serious about my healing path. I met my mentor after the flashbacks started happening. And because she had also in life, early life, experienced very heavy abuse. She had already gone through her healing path. The 20 years before that, she was able to hold space for me to very, very gradually and gently let go of all the stages of healing. The acceptance or the denial, the acceptance, the outrage, the grief, the horror, the shock, the disbelief, the grief, and then finally the forgiveness and the integration. So it was like rinse and repeat for me every week. And I kept going, and I would make a joke with her that this was like, hey, I'm here for my gang rape session with no anesthetic, because that's what it felt like every time I would go in and lay down there, say my prayer, God, purify me, take out all the ugly things in my heart so I can be useful. And then I would lay there and surrender for all I was worth, and out would come the memories. Super, super heavy memories. I've written songs about them, written poems about them, writing a book about them. And at first, it was so hard that I didn't know how to be. I almost lost my marriage over it. My husband's a saintly person for being able to stay with me despite it. I didn't know I had multiple personality issues. Of course, anybody who's been split through satanic ritual, which is part of their standard procedure, has multiple personalities. So it was a very gradual process of integration for me. And the books on this topic say that it takes about 15 to 25 years of therapy to get through it. But because of the Lord's grace and the expertise of my mentor, I was really through it in about 5. And then the next 5 years were really finer tuning. And then at one point I thought that's what I was going to do with the rest of my life, was help survivors of satanic ritual abuse come to the other side. But I knew that that was just one part of the solutions that were needed in the world. So, even if I helped people with extreme trauma, survivors of human trafficking and unspeakable things get to the other side, there's a whole bunch more people who are affected by it, even if they haven't directly experienced it. And in their daily lives, one of my mock book titles was, I didn't know I was such an MFer, with a little picture of an innocent looking old lady on it in the front with a hamburger. Like, our culture is based on Satanism. Every aspect of what we do is infiltrated with deep, deep hypocrisy. The American symbol, the hamburger and the flag. There's so much there that is just rife with spiritual ignorance. So repression of memories is a natural function. It's like the body's response to extreme pain. So when you break a bone, for example, your body has like a breaker box. And it just turns off the whole thing. If you experience too much physical pain, literally your whole body just shuts it off and you don't feel anything. I one time had an accident where that happened. Horseback riding accident. And I remember looking at the injury and just feeling nothing. And that's the body's way of protecting itself. So when you experience an extreme emotional trauma, you disassociate. And that dissociative mechanism of the human body is what is taken advantage of by the Satanists, by the trauma-based mind control experts, that, the Hitler's Nazi scientists, they all studied this, is how do you systematically traumatize a person so that they disassociate? And once they're disassociated, how do you put in what you want to put in? How do you create split personalities where one doesn't know about the existence of the other. Manchurian candidates, this whole thing is all based on the dissociative mechanism. So repressed memory doesn't mean false memory. It means repressed. It's like an oyster produces a pearl when there is a foreign element put into the oyster, like a piece of sand or something. And in order for the oyster to continue its normal function, it encapsulates that foreign object with layers and layers of that secretion that eventually turn into a pearl, so that it almost becomes one with it and it doesn't disrupt its function. So in the same way, when you have a trauma, you can't process it because of this severity of it. It completely bypasses the frontal cortex, goes into the limbic brain, and just gets stored. And you have no cognitive awareness of it, especially when you're a child. The Satanists, they have this saying that means F them before they're 8, before it's too late. So in your formative years, when that trauma is put in, it lays the foundation for your later becoming one of them, becoming part of their society. It's like their mission in life is to create as many Satanists as they can through early childhood trauma or programming. It's a very, very real thing. There's tons of books on it if you care to read about very unsavory topics. Anyways, that's not my purpose here. My purpose is just to say this has happened. This has gone on in the organization. These are my experiences. I'm not alone in it. There are plenty of other people who've experienced this. There's very few who have come to the other side of it just because it's been so hard. But it is there. So repressed memory, it's like packing a trunk. What you put in first comes out last. So I'd said this Purify Me prayer, and all of these recalls started coming. At first it was, anyways, I don't want to freak anybody out here with the specifics, but it was hard. It was super, super hard. They're unspeakable, horrible things that I experienced. And it was a choice every day not to kill myself. Not proud about that, but that was definitely one of the options. And I believe that that is why the Lord showed me my previous life in my first experience so that I could understand the futility of suicide. It doesn't work. In case any of you watching are contemplating this, suicide is simply a waste of time. You are eternal. You will take another birth, and it will be right where you left off, probably even worse. Don't do it. Take advantage of what God has given you in your life right now, the people that He is sending to you, and make a different choice, because suicide doesn't work. All right, so we've gone over my experiences. Flashbacks continue, but I learned to manage them so they're not debilitating anymore. And the intensity of them, I feel like I could go to the dark night of the soul between the red light and the green light. I just got really good at processing it. And Queen of Process, my mentor calls me, because I realized that there's a place that you can get to in your own being where you're just alone with God and you're still and you're okay, and no matter what happens above here, it's just the story. You're untouched by any of it. You're really not this body. You're really not any of these experiences. You're not the good guy. You're not the bad guy. You're just loved by God, and He wants you home. So that's my little piece on repressed memory.